Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Black Doctoral Network weekly web series entitled Conversation Starters, where we discuss a plethora of topics relevant to the African American community. I am so thrilled that you all could join us this evening as we have a extremely important topic to discuss this evening, which is the importance of wellness and self care during graduate studies. This topic, I believe, is so relevant to our continuum of our recognition of a lot of our graduate students during this pandemic. And to facilitate this discussion, I have some wonderful panelists that are going to be joining us this evening. Our first panelist joining us is Ms. Tamika Reese, who is an academic advisor for the Graduate Pre-Health Sciences at Florida International University College of Nursing and Health Sciences. She is also a second-year doctoral student at FIU in adult education and human resource development. She also has research interest in African American first-generation college students' experiences at HBCUs, HSIs, and PWIs. I welcome you, Ms. Reese.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Our second panelist joining us this evening is Ms. Jocelyn Richardson, who currently is an elementary educator at the University City School District. She currently is a Doctor of Education candidate in the social justice cohort for educational practice at the University of Missouri St. Louis. She has research interest in culturally responsive and sustaining pedagogy, social justice education, as well as Black student achievement and math and social studies curriculum. I welcome you, Ms. Richardson. Following next is Mr. Damon Anderson, who is the Chief Information Officer for the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission, also is a business owner and a corporate professor at the Harrisburg University Science of Technology. He's currently pursuing his PhD in cybersecurity leadership at Capital Technology University. His research interests include organizational design and development, group and business startups, and also with a heavy cybersecurity focus. I welcome you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you very much. Very honored to be here tonight. Looking forward to the conversation.
Wonderful. So I am really thrilled that we could have this show today because a lot of times the focus on wellness and self-care is often put on the back burner. So I believe that, definitely this is a conversation that we need to have and sustain that dialogue. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in with my first question. First question is, how would you describe the relationship between wellness and academic achievement? Ms. Richardson.
I believe that wellness is absolutely important for academic achievement. I think that a lot of times we sacrifice wellness for academic achievement, and some people believe that you can't have both. But true emotional and mental and physical wellness is absolutely an important thing that we should be paying attention to and that we should be implementing in our lives as we try to achieve academically.
No, thank you for that. Ms. Reese, what are your thoughts? I think you're muted.
I tell you, it happens.
Yes, it has. No worries.
So I believe that it is essential to have that relationship between wellness and academic achievement, because if you have students that do not have mental, emotional, or physical wellness, then they're not going to do well academically. So I do believe that it is important for every student to establish that relationship between, with themselves first, and then also the university. And it's also the responsibility of the university to understand how wellness and academic achievement goes hand in hand.
Wonderful. Thank you for highlighting those points. Mr. Anderson, what are your thoughts?
Thinking about wellness, there are so many things that are wrapped up in that. Like she just mentioned, part of your emotional state is a part of that. Also too, with us in our studies, there's always the fear of failure. Sometimes when we're dealing with a heavy course load or experiencing other things we're going through, or how we take care of ourselves, how we think our thoughts through, being able to put things aside to clear your mind. All these things are so vital to the success of you completing any program.
No, thank you. And for all of your responses to that, to just really state that there is a relationship between the two and is very important. So the next question that I have for you all is, what are some examples of self-care techniques that you all have implemented during your graduate studies? Um, Ms. Reese.
Okay, so this one is a big one for me. I do believe that practices in self-care and mindfulness has helped me. I've learned along the way that to identify the things that helps me to center. So in the moments where I may be anxious or experiencing those imposter syndromes or that belongingness issue that a lot of graduate students and especially African American graduate students experience, things such as journaling, creating a gratitude journal has helped me. Meditation, and just enjoying good music is also a way that helps me to actually to center and to be mindful of what I need in the moment.
Wonderful. And thank you for sharing those because, we often get so stuck in the plethora of completing our studies that these simple things that you mentioned, just listening to music, is it can actually definitely help. Miss Richardson.
Yes, I also have many self-care activities that I do. So I'm an avid reader. So it was very important for me, or it's been very important for me to read for pleasure because in a graduate program, you're always reading for class, right? For your research. And so I make sure that I get books for pleasure so that I'm not, focusing on academic things or even because my program is social justice and, that's what I am interested in even reading books outside of class. I make sure that the content that I am exposing myself to is not so how do I say this heavy. So
Mm,
that has been very important for me. Also, I love to dance, so I've been taking liturgical dance classes. I do praise dance. My faith is very important to me. So prayer during this time has been essential, absolutely. And then I also make it a habit of scheduling a massage every month, which is new this year. I knew that if I waited and said, "Hey, I'll just schedule it for myself next month," instead of when I leave that previous month scheduling in advance, that I wasn't going to do it. So I'm very intentional about scheduling, making sure when I leave, hey, put me on the calendar because then I'm kind of forcing myself to, go to that appointment and take that time for me outside of work and school.
oh, wonderful. And you mentioned something that we're probably all guilty of is procrastination.
Mm.
And just actually having that intent, just, okay, I'm going to do it now type thing, is really important. So thank you. Mr. Anderson.
One of the first things that I believe is one of the most important is sleep and getting enough rest. I
Mm,
know I've been very guilty of being up 24 hours or 48 hours without sleep, driving to get papers done or to do research, and you kind of get engrossed. And you started, it was dark. You finished, it was dark. What happened to the day? And so, if and once you don't sleep, then it throws your whole body clock off, and then you start to make mistakes. You start to make errors. Eating a balanced meal is also a part of that. Making sure that you eat and you're giving yourself proper nourishment. Exercise. Taking breaks. Journaling. I also do that as well. Meditating and praying. That's also very important. And then the one thing I always try to do, the two other things, is I try to set realistic goals because sometimes we're looking at this body of work that we have to complete, and knowing full well that we're not going to get all of this done. And I had to learn to be okay with that. I had to learn to set milestones. I can go this far today, and then I've got to stop because I have to rest. The other part of that is getting support from my relationships, from my spouse and my children and my grands, that also helps too. That's always a good break because they kind of snap you out of the got to study, got to do this. Don't talk to me. You turn into this person, and let's get back to life. The books will be waiting for us when we return.
Right. No, thank you for that and breaking down with those examples. But all of you have pretty much stated that self care is necessary, and we also definitely need to take time to break away from being so book focused. So, thank you for those responses. The next question that I have for you all is, how has the implementation of self care interventions increased your ability to achieve your goals? Ms. Richardson.
Yes, I think that because I use those self care interventions, I'm more focused and able to just really focus on school when it's time to focus on school. If I don't, then I'm not going to want to focus on school. This past spring was very difficult because the pandemic hit, and then I'm in the middle of this class, and many of us have been there. I don't feel like doing anything. It was
Mm,
very hard, and so I had to really take time out to do dance or do like read and make sure I have those things outside of school, outside of work, that would help me stay in a good mental and emotional state. So I think that they really helped me. I really don't have a difficult time with self care. That's never really been an issue for me, and I'm just thankful for that. But I know for some others there are, but it is an issue. So yeah, those are some of the advantages of those strategies for me.
wonderful. Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
There we go. Got myself unmuted. That mute button. Well, one of the things that with me as far as self care and my self care interventions, there was a real quick. There was a story that I had read one time. It talked about if I have 9 hours to chop down a tree, I'm going to sharpen my saw. Spend 8 of those hours getting myself mentally prepared. And part of my mental preparation is I have to be able to think. As we're going through this process, we're trying to write and we're trying to pull these thoughts together. We're trying to create something really, that brings new thought to a particular area, a particular field. You have to be on top of your game. And these interventions, being able to do self care, some of the things I had mentioned earlier, they help me to shut down, to recenter, to refocus. Because if I can't think, then it's a not only is it a fruitless day, but then I get frustrated, and then I find myself falling behind. Whether you're thinking critically or you're thinking systems, big picture, or you're looking at design, thinking from bottoms up, from the customer's, from the person's point of view. We've got to
Mhm.
be able to think. I think that's our strongest weapon, and that's what these self-care processes do. They help us to shut down and to be able to use our thought processes.
No, thank you. You're absolutely right. Needing to have to reset is very important to continue the journey. So thank you. Ms. Reese.
I too echo what has been said before as the one thing that we keep hearing with these reoccurring themes is focus and being able to center. So for me, the practices of self-care and mindfulness and also my faith has been the things that have helped me to accomplish the goals, because how I first approached this idea of goals, um, when life begins to happen and you can't control everything around you, you learn how it is important to embrace the time that you have. It's okay to not be okay.
Hmm.
So I've learned that along the way. I've learned how to reach out to care networks. When I become fatigued, I tell myself, Tamika, it's time for you to disconnect. And whatever that disconnect is, then I that is going to help you to reach that goal. We're wearing many hats, especially those of us who are full time in graduate study, and those of us who are working full time jobs, and we're also working in academia. We're at those institutions during those peak periods,
Hmm.
especially I can say coming off of a peak period as an academic advisor, I'm thinking I have a proposal to write. I have a final paper. I need to start prepare, but at the same time, I have students who are expecting me to show up for them. And that's my responsibility as well. So those mindfulness and self-care practices can even be me closing my office door and turning on Pandora to my Luther station and taking 5 minutes to just center, to breathe and say, okay, Tamika, you can't do it all at once, and that's okay. So that is a part of what has helped me to be able to accomplish those goals, to know that this is a marathon. This
Mm.
isn't a sprint, so I had to embrace that idea, to know that you need to change your perspective. And first of all, you need to accept self. And so along this journey, I have gained that perspective that, girl, you're running a marathon.
Right.
You're not running a sprint. You're going to take your time. You're going to learn as you go. And if you need to reroute, then you reroute. But it's better to care for self so you can show up as your best self.
No, that you said that you couldn't have said it any more perfectly. It's a marathon and it's not a race. And the practice of mindfulness is very important. So thank you for sharing.
Sure.
So, still staying in the context of self care and wellness, do you think that wellness education programs should be part of the academic system? Mr. Anderson.
Of course, as academics, we know that there's research out there that proves that wellness programs do work. That those who are able to immerse themselves and take advantage of those things, it benefits them in the long run. Of course, we also know that when you're not taking part in some of those things, you become absent, whether it's absent on the job, whether it's absent in your studies, whether it's being present in the room, but absent in mind because you're somewhere else. And so I think it's like an investment.
Mm.
It kind of pays off over time. If you take the time and the effort, to put in the right things, to do the right things, it'll pay off. If you don't, it's like not having an investment, because it's the whole physical, emotional, spiritual, social things, all the things we've been talking about. I believe that, as I was just saying, that it's a investment well worth the time. Definitely should be part of the academic system.
Oh, thank you for that. Miss Richardson.
I absolutely agree that wellness education programs should be a part of the academic system. I think that, again, being intentional about it, instead of sending an email or saying, just remember to practice self care, remember to practice wellness. How can we make sure that this is embedded in coursework, so that it's not just something on the side, because we know that it's important. We know that graduate students or students need it. So how can we make it a part of the curriculum or the program so that it's seamless, and so not just another thing to do, and also so that it would show that the university and the professors are in agreement that this is important. We want you to be well.
No, no. Thank you for those comments. Miss Reese.
Yes, I do agree that it is very important that wellness education programs be a part of the academic system, because it's important for not only graduate students or students to identify what wellness is. Wellness is, you know, those things that can be interrupted by both internal and external stressors. So I feel that it's the responsibility of, it's a shared responsibility from the students to professors to the higher level administrators to academic advisors to support staff. You want to not only have these wellness programs for staff at the institution, but you
Mhm.
also need to establish wellness programs for those students, because every institution has to be and should be student centered. So
Mhm.
we all know that we are moving through life, and life happens. If nothing has taught us all that, 2020 has, especially this pandemic, that we need to focus on wellness and be able to stand still when the storms and the winds of life is raging around us, you can't expect someone to show up if you don't have the resources available to them. So is that going to be a healthy living program? Is
Mm.
that going to manifest in a meditation practice or a webinar for students to be able to attend? Are you all going to have graduate programs or with the Black Student Union? Incorporate and listen to all the voices, voices collectively, so that you can know that the academic system has to also be representative of all things wellness.
No, thank you for that. And I hope you guys are taking notes, audience members, because this is a lot of wonderful information that I think we often don't really take in consideration when it comes to the discussion of wellness. So thank you all for that. So the next question that I have is, how has the current pandemic influenced your ability to practice self-care interventions? Ms. Richardson.
Yes, the current pandemic has influenced my ability to practice self-care interventions. As it really taught me how important it is to take self-care. It's I'm currently teaching virtually with my elementary students. And so, if you are someone who works, on Zoom or some other video platform, you get Zoom fatigue. And so I have to make sure I force myself to not be on the computer the rest of the day, whether it's, doing lesson plans or grading work or emailing students, taking that time away and cutting that time off after 4 o'clock and spending that time, reading or watching a TV show or stretching
Mhm.
or dancing, or cooking, spending time with myself and recharging. So yeah, the pandemic just taught me like this is absolutely necessary to take self care.
No, thank you. And I'm sure our audience members are agreeing with a lot of what has been said so far. So if you are watching, please feel free to share this live stream that is currently happening now with your colleagues, family, and friends. This is information that not only can apply in an academic setting, but just during the pandemic in general. So I appreciate the panelists being here to share this with information. Mr. Anderson, what are your thoughts?
One of the things of course, being home, we've all had to make adjustments. One of the things that I used to love to do is go out, during lunchtime, go out in the sun and just stand and just feel the rays of the sun, and
Mm,
and be around people and just get out of that environment. And of course, now with the pandemic and everyone in masks and people looking at you, not really want to be near you, it's it's a little bit of adjustment, of course, but it's something that you have to find other ways to do those same type of things. Now you get in a vehicle, you try to take walks down paths, or you know, uh, just being out. Sometimes being out in nature, that helps a lot, especially like I said, for prayer and meditation. Those kinds of things. Also, too, finding. I go online and find others who are just like we're doing tonight. Others who are experiencing the same type of things that you are.
mm.
It's just caused me to reach out a lot more via my computer, to other folks who are dealing with the same type of things that I am. So I've had to change up some of my practices, but we're still here, still moving forward.
No, thank you for that. Ms. Reese.
The one thing that this pandemic has taught me, and I think that it has changed perspective for many, is this issue of time. It's the one thing that we have absolutely no control over. So this pandemic has taught me to be more present. Um, we, as graduate students and working professionals, we can always move forward with what we have to do. I need to get this done. I need to have this done. But it's taught me to be more present. It's taught me how to find the moments where I'm seeking joy, and also to be more grateful and to show gratitude. Because one thing that we can all agree on is the only constant thing in life is change.
Hmm.
Never thought that we would be experiencing a pandemic in our lifetime. So one thing we have done since, and we went remote at my institution in mid-March. And we thought that was going to look like maybe a month, you know, and then it turned into full 7 months of remote work. And now we're starting to slowly repopulate. But that for us, that's changed the whole perspective, how we had to become more resourceful. So that's also one of the things that this pandemic has brought to me is, you know, even when you have to change your perspective. You have to be willing to accept change and find how to make it work best for you, but also to feel whatever you're feeling. You know, if you're feeling fatigue, if you're feeling anxiety, it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling in that moment, but don't get stuck there. So that's the one thing that this pandemic has truly, truly taught me.
No, thank you for that insight. And I think commonly said amongst you all is that although this pandemic did come the way it did, it has taught us a lot of things. It has, definitely made us adjust and adapt, actually. And in any storm, there is light at the end of the tunnel. So definitely appreciate you all's insight. So the next question that I have is, what types of support structures are significant to African American graduate students' wellness? Mr. Anderson.
I would start out by saying that understanding that if we're providing support to students, that one size does not fit all. Everybody is not the same. We're all different. We're dealing with different issues, different concerns. There are some that are working while they're going to school. As she had mentioned earlier, there are some that are on scholarship. There's some that are dealing with family issues. Some may even be dealing with health issues, other types of things. And so a cookie cutter approach is not going to work. Having those members of faculty that are, I don't want to use the word awake, but I would just say aware of the plight of students and the plight of, things that I'm trying to be politically correct and try to explain this, but um, it helps if I've experienced it myself to be able to help somebody else. If I can't relate to where you're at, then I can't relate to where you're at. And so I could, for example, I know, just to give an example, I know there was an advisor that when, the African American students would come on campus day one, she put them under her wing, and she followed them for 4 years. They were all time they would get together in the student union. They had, there might be other events that were going on campus. She always had events that addressed the African American students to kind of bring them together. What kind of issues are you dealing with? Are you struggling? Do you need a tutor? Do you need someone to help you with this class? What is it? How's your financial situation? Things are struggling at home. Maybe we can find a way to get your family some food or whatever. Because if I'm worrying about home, I'm not on campus in my mind. And so what's what I'm saying by understanding what kinds of things the African American students are dealing with, then you can better position yourself to be able to help. There was a gentleman I know from my own experience that took an interest in me. There was a time that, I had kind of stopped attending school and was frustrated with life, and he saw me hanging out on the corner with the fellas, and you kind of know where that journey ends. And one day he called me over to his home, and we went down to his basement, and he basically read me the riot act. And as a result of him reading me the riot act, I got myself together. I enrolled back in school. I finished, went on, got my master's. And so, because of him taking an interest in me, because that was his role at his school. He was an academic advisor, and he took an interest. And so because of him, I'm where I'm at now. Of course, with the grace of God. But, understanding. I guess I would just say back, understanding.
No, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And the fact that you highlighted just having an understanding of the social, economic stressors or factors that African Americans may be dealing with to take in consideration of how wellness will actually affect them is very important. So thank you. Ms. Reese.
I believe that the types of support structures, um, will vary by students, will vary by socioeconomic status, will vary by location, demographics. So when with African American students, and that's one of the reasons for I'm so interested in the area of research that I am, because I am my research.
Mm,
First generation African American students and African American students, there's a cultural underlying that also encompasses what wellness is and what this experience will be for these graduate students. First off, you have many students who their immediate family or parents may not have attended a higher education, may have not earned a degree or earned a bachelor's degree. So they don't come from those backgrounds where really, you as continuous generation students, they have mothers and fathers and generations before them that know what the college experience is. So they are, from the moment they're young, they're being conditioned to survive as a college student.
mm,
So we must consider those structural supports for students, be them the familial connection, you know, parent support is very important, and also community support. So those cultural factors are very important. So things like the Black Student Union,
mm,
that was such a great support for me as a Black graduate student at a PWI. My foundation is Florida A&M University, my HBCU that I hold so near and dear, because FAMU laid the foundation for me to move forward as I have. So I've had that HBCU experience, but moving into that PWI experience, I found myself searching for these structures and these networks, because these institutions must understand that students are going to identify and their needs are going to be based off of their lived experiences.
mm,
So it's important for us to engage in discourse that is going to make sure that we have these structures in place that's representative for all demographics, because not every student, excuse me, comes from that same experience. So those things that speaks to inclusivity, belongingness, you need to make sure you have everything structured. As a student, you need to be open to those structures and seeking out those resources, and also as an institution to set in place those structures that's going to help Black African American Black graduate students to be successful, because they're coming from, that whole thing, you're not coming from where I'm coming from.
mm,
So when you're in different institutions, they don't know what that looked like. So you have to be mindful that you have to understand their lived experiences, and how graduate study for an African American graduate student may
mm.
look different than graduate study for a white, a Caucasian student or Asian student. Everyone, those demographics and their experiences are very unique, and we need to make sure the structures and the systems are in place to help graduate students be successful.
No, thank you. Thank you for your thoughts. That was beautifully said. Miss Richardson.
Yes, I would just echo what both Tamika and Mr. Anderson said. Absolutely, having a safe staff member, faculty member there that understands your plight, especially when you're at a PWI, which I attended for undergrad. And also having a safe community or village is extremely important. And I just remember in my undergrad, the Black community wasn't that large, but we had a community of people. And I definitely don't think that I would have stayed if I didn't have those that support system, being a student at the university. And so in my doctoral program, it's a cohort model. So in my cohort, we support each other. We take the same classes, and there are other African American professionals in my cohort. So that has been really helpful to me as well. But yeah, having a community, if universities or faculty can support that and facilitate that, that is absolutely important for Black students.
Thank you for that. No, thank you. I appreciate your comments. So, moving in a direction of when we're talking about the institution as a whole and looking at it from a leadership perspective, how can academic leadership support the implementation of programs that provide wellness services to students? Can you all hear me?
Now I can, yes.
Okay. So, how can academic leadership support the implementation of programs that provide wellness services to students? Ms. Richardson.
I would say that just listen to the students, survey the students, get feedback about what their needs are. We've discussed like how it's different for every person, and we don't all have the same needs and wants. So just getting that feedback about what programs do you think will be beneficial to support in wellness, or how can you involve the staff so that the students feel supported when they do participate in those programs. So yeah, just listen to what the students need, because as Tamika said, it should be student centered anyway, right? And it's not always historically been that way in higher education, but that needs to change. And so yeah, I think that feedback is important.
No, thank you. Mr. Anderson, what are your thoughts?
I would also agree. There was an acronym that we used. It was called PUSH, where you persist until something happens. And I think that with wellness, even with you've identified, say as an academic, you've identified students that need what you're trying to offer. It's not a once and done type of thing. I think about the examples of the two individuals I mentioned a moment ago. They were very persistent with me. I was comfortable on the block, or and they basically righted my ship, set me on a different course of direction. They were very persistent, and I think as academics, that's something that as we're looking at our students, that's something that we have to do. We have to be persistent. Now, as those who are in academia working on, as I mentioned, working on our programs, we also have to do the same with ourselves. We have to, okay, so yesterday I forgot to do my prayer and meditation. I forgot to take time to unwind. Well, I can't beat myself up. I've got next day's coming, start over, and just kind of stay with the program. Eventually it'll catch. Eventually, like I said, I'll right side and I'll be going in the right direction. But we've got to be persistent. We got to keep pushing, persisting until something happens or something changes.
No, thank you. Ms. Reese.
I believe that academic leadership should support the implementation of programs that provide wellness services to students. And the way that they can do that is, first, they need to identify the needs of the students. So that's the importance of research. Research lends itself to many different levels. So send out questionnaires to the student body. Ask them what they need. Sometimes it's as simple as sitting down with a student and saying, "How can I help you?" Don't just say, "Oh, I think if I do this." Let's go create this program. And you created this program for these students, but that's not what they need. So here you are, you have wasted resources to implement a program that the students did not need or they're not going to utilize. So you need to listen to what students need, and you also need to network. You also need to look at other institutions and see what they are doing, especially if you have a body of students that's not traditional to your institution. Maybe look at what other institutions are doing, what they have, their best practices, so that you can know how to best come together and implement these programs. And of course, you got to follow up, because if you create a program, but there's no one that's actually promoting it, there's no one that's actually, nurturing it, then here it is, as the older generations would say, it's going to fall by the wayside.
Mm.
So, leadership must know and remember why they're there in the first place. So, one of the most important things in higher learning institutions is continuity. So that's I think that is very important.
Oh, thank you for that. And I like how everyone has really like conceptualized the role of academic leadership in this whole phenomenon of wellness and self-care. So thank you. So the last question that I have, once we've really put everything that we have discussed into the melting pot, what are some ways that we can continue to foster the important relationship between wellness and academic achievement? Ms. Richardson, I think you're muted.
Some ways that we can continue to foster the relationship between wellness and academic achievement is to continue pushing, like Mr. Anderson said, and continue talking about it, and continue implementing wellness programs in our schools. So it's not just for it to be a fad or this is the thing to do, but something that is continuous, something that, like Tamika said, is have someone sit down with the student. What do you need? How can I help you be well? Or what are the ways we can, foster wellness in your life? So just continuing to stress the importance of wellness and self-care, and educating people about how to do it, and that it's okay to do it, and it's okay to have just be joyful, even in the midst of, all the craziness that's going on, in the midst of, maybe not doing so well in school. Find that joy in your life. We should all just stress the importance of joy. Like, find something you can find joy in and you can delight in.
No, thank you for that. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you very much. I appreciate, as you were just talking about joy, that was something similar to what I was going to share. It says in scripture that laughter does good like a medicine. And that's one of the strategies that I use almost every day, you know, as far as wellness. Sometimes I'll put something on just to laugh, almost until I hurt myself, you know, because sometimes we're dealing with a lot. You were sharing earlier about you're dealing with the course load, and then you're dealing with the students, and then you're dealing with their issues and all these other things you've got dealing with the job, and when you've got all these things. Sometimes as hard as you're working, you need to relax, and just that hard, and so laughter, I use that as a part of. Sometimes I'll throw on Michael Jr. or if I need to, that other guy, what's that? Dave Chappelle was one of those. There's a lot of good folks out there that can make you laugh, but just trying to find and take that time. It releases endorphins that help your body to all kinds of wonderful things that it will do for your body. But and so, and also too, the last thing I would say as far as wellness is continuing to get the word out. Talking to your coworkers and your other students and those that you're in studies with, to do checks on them, making sure they're okay. Asking someone, "Are you sure you're okay?" Especially now during COVID, a lot of folks are, we're kind of separated from one another when we're used to being together. Just doing checks on folks, making sure that everyone is okay. And like I said, that's if I was a physician, that would be my prescription. Give them some laughter.
Yeah, thank you for that. That your wonderful suggestions, and I know, as you can see, the audience members are agreeing with a lot of what has been said in this dialogue. So I appreciate that. I think Ms. Reese, can you hear me, Ms. Reese? Oh no, we may have lost her. But nonetheless, I really appreciate this dialogue and this conversation that we've had this afternoon. Here you go. We're waiting for you. Welcome back.
So I said, I tell you, in the end, it wants to go out on me. But I echo what was said. We have to first to establish this sense of of understanding of what wellness is, all that it entails. And first, let's get rid of the taboos. You know, that's a big issue. Counseling is not a bad thing.
Mhm.
Sometimes you need to go for the help because you can't do it all on your own. You know the resources that are at the institution and utilize them. I tell my students that all the time. I can tell you what resources we have here, but if you don't utilize those resources, then you're doing yourself a great disservice, because we have so many resources here for you. And even through this pandemic, we have staff that are doing lunchtime meditations and activating gratitude sessions and webinars, also students. So that type of thing needs to continue. So it doesn't need to be something that is lost once we've gotten away from what we're experiencing. So just knowing that it is important to establish these resources and have them in place. And as far as a student, an African American graduate student, know that you belong. You've earned your seat. And just listening and knowing what is there for you. So those are the things that I think will be beneficial.
No, thank you. Thank you for your feedback, and thank you all, wonderful panelists, for all your insights and information. I think, again, as I stated earlier, for this episode, that we really don't take in consideration the importance of wellness and self care. And, unfortunately, a pandemic has really made us revisit that importance. So I just want to say thank you, panelists, for taking the time out to join me this evening to have this conversation and have this dialogue. So before we go, I wanted to give our audience members an opportunity to reach out to you if they have any further questions or want to continue this conversation. So I just ask that you guys provide a bit of your contact information. Ms. Reese, how can people get in contact with you?
Well, people can get in contact with me at TREES013 at FIU.edu. So you can reach out to me and through email and contact me. And I would love to continue the conversation. It's been such an honor to be here to speak on a matter that is so near and dear to me. And I just encourage you all to look into wellness and self-care practices, and let's continue to have the conversation that's very important.
No, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Mr. Anderson, how can people get in contact with you?
You can hit me up at my email at danderson@harrisburgu.edu or on LinkedIn as Damon Anderson. And like I said, I've enjoyed my time spending with you all this evening. Real quick, if I was just going to say, in kind of in closing for myself, I snatched this from the internet, but a while ago, if you're having a rough day, RUFF day, number one, rest, quiet your brain, unplug, do something you do like we talked about, listen to some music. F, get yourself some food, just treat yourself to a snack, and then F, have some fun. Make sure you smile,
Yes,
enjoy.
no, we definitely agree. Thank you for that. Miss Richardson.
Yes, you can reach me at Jocelyn, JOSLYN Richardson at UMSL.edu. UMSL.edu, or my LinkedIn is Jocelyn Richardson. And just thank you for inviting me. This has also been enlightening for me, just hearing from the other two panelists who, working in academia and some of, their experiences and their, knowledge. So I really appreciate it. And just a reminder to everyone to find some joy, to find your joy.
Yes.
Yes, that's the motto for the rest of 2020, is to find your joy. So thank you for that. So tonight concludes our last broadcast for 2020. Again, I want to say a huge thank you to our panelists this evening for a great conversation. Thank you to all our viewers, audience members that have tuned in every Friday at 7 o'clock to be a part of these phenomenal discussions. Please be sure to share this live session with your friends, family, colleagues, and professional networks. If you haven't joined Conversation Starters and would like to keep up to date with the latest BDN developments, please be sure to check us out on blackphdnetwork.org, and also become a member. You can also follow us on Facebook at Black Doctoral Network. Again, I am your moderator, Fese Ilonge. It has been a pleasure providing you all with these wonderful conversations, and I say happy holidays, happy new year, and see you next time. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Have a good evening, everyone.